somebody said to me once, when you're having this discussion with a patient and there's a semi-bespoke device here and there's a bespoke device here, they ask you the question, well, which one's better? And you say, right, well, let's take money off the table. Which one do you think would be better? And they go, well, the bespoke one. You're like, well, there you go. There's always a budget, but at the same time, it's not our job to tell them what they can and can't afford.
No, of course.
It's our job to give them the best possible treatment. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Optimised Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Emma Price, and today I'm joined by the wonderful George Cummins from Gait and Motion Technology. Together today, we're going to be discussing how to optimise and improve patient outcomes whilst improving your average spend and how to grow your team as a consequence of that. So welcome, George. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon, Emma. You're sounding like a professional podcaster already.
Well, thank you very much, sir. You can come again. Fab. Alrighty. So thanks for your time today, and let's kick off. So could you tell me a little bit about Gait and Motion Technology?
Yeah, of course. So I founded Gait and Motion Technology in 2018, having previously worked at a different company in the pressure measurement space and bespoke orthotics. And then I jumped ship. I think it was March 2018 to launch the company. Pretty much started from zero, really. And we retained the Phits scan technology from our old company, pioneered the launch of the Phits 3D printed orthotics that I know several Hive members, including yourself, use in practice. And then we've expanded our portfolio over the last 8 years to where we are today. So we have quite a broad range of kit, from handheld digital goniometers all the way through to EMG, force plates, etc. So that's a very brief intro to Gait and Motion Technology. Might also be worth mentioning Gait and Motion Clinics, which also you're a part of course. Due to the growth of the FootScan and Phits community, we made the decision to bring them together as one national network, just to try and raise the profile of podiatry and lower limb foot care and allow us to market to the general public in a more sort of nationwide approach. So we've got over 500 clinical partners across the UK, Ireland, and UAE now, offer that service to the general public. So yes, in a nutshell, that's me.
And obviously you're talking about lower limb and foot care, but you do extend into physiotherapy. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, literally head to toe. We've even got a dentistry solution looking at your biting muscles for optimal occlusion. But yeah, across the healthcare spectrum, but our main sort of target areas is your podiatry, physiotherapy, and obviously that then crosses over with sports therapy, osteo, etc. But yeah, just giving them tools that they can use to optimize their biomechanical assessments, really.
Indeed. Now I'm a big fan. I've had this, 7 years now? I've had
about 7 years. You're one of the first, so it must be about 7 years now.
I use it every day, all the time. Well, my team do anyway. So tell us a little bit about what's your newest offering that you've got going?
So the latest product release is a system called Easy Base, which are dual force plates. And we've always had force plates in our portfolio, but quite big, bulky lab grade ones, which, to be honest, Emma, you wouldn't want in a private practice because they're super expensive, bulky, and the software is a bit clunky. So these are very much designed for private practice, so portable, easy to use, and kind of really guides that patient through the journey of assessment through to reporting. Yeah, that's our most recent launch. And yeah, that's gone really well so far. I think we launched 1st of March, got over 40 clinics that have integrated that so far. So
congrats, well done. So let's just say I've already got the foot scan, but let's say I've got my Easy Base and my Easy Angle, my Easy Force stuff. Tell us about some of the tangible benefits to me as a business owner. Why am I getting this equipment in, and what are the benefits to my patients?
Yeah, I guess almost regardless of which technology it is, I think in the modern world of private healthcare, it's almost become the expectation to be measured or shown data rather than just being told, oh, you've got a bad knee or a bad foot. I'm not quite sure that cuts it anymore in the modern day. So I think particularly when in private practice, you're charging more of a premium for your biomechanical assessments or injury consultations, it just helps you to build a more detailed assessment that a patient can work through rather than just being eyeballed. So whether it's measuring range of motion, I mean, if we just take a take a shoulder injury, for example. I know in a podiatry world, you're not going to be looking at that so much.
No, we've got plenty of physios though, so.
Yeah, so it extends head to toe, but I'll use that as an example. We can measure range of motion in all three planes. We could look at the strength of the muscles as well. And if you wanted to get really geeky, you could also look at the EMG, so the muscle activity as well. But ultimately, giving you those tools to be able to get data on day one, assess the patient's sort of current level, and then allow them to follow like a tailored rehabilitation program or exercises. And I think as well, by obviously having it measurable, we can then retest further down the line and see actually has there been a positive change, which hopefully there has. And even if it's minimal, at least there's been a change and we can kind of prove that to patients. So I think, getting the patient buy-in is super important. And I know obviously quite a big part of the Hive sort of goal is helping people to grow their teams. And I think, again, these days, I know particularly in podiatry, people struggle to recruit. I know some clinics that I've spoken with that have been trying to get a new podiatrist for 2 years. So I think by bringing in technology or toys, whatever you want to call them, I think that makes it a really attractive place for someone to come and work. If they've got access to all the latest equipment, makes their life a lot easier. Well, not necessarily easier, but more enjoyable, perhaps, rather than having nothing.
For sure. I mean, it makes their job more interesting, for sure. I'd say, giving people varied work is important when you're trying to build a team. I agree with that. And having some things like this that, that GMT are doing, the research-based and up-to-date clinical equipment is really important, I think, in attracting good quality people who want to do their best work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I was only at a clinic up north last week. You might have seen it online. You probably won't mind me mentioning him. A chap called Jonathan Shearer, he's in the Hive as well. So I hadn't seen him for a year or so, but I went back up to the day because we were passing through. And, this year alone, he's recruited 4 new members of staff. But at the same time, he buys every bit of kit under the sun. It's becoming a museum. But actually, for the patients, amazing. He's got everything under the roof. It's enabling to retain the vast majority of patients for all their needs. So he was predominantly a podiatry clinic, but he's now got, I think, sports therapists or sports rehabbers in there as well. And it's allowing that multidisciplinary approach where patients are just passed to each other, keeping it under one roof. So from someone within the Hive group, I think it's a pretty nice example of someone that's demonstrated that really well.
For sure. I think he's doing fantastically well, and it is attractive, I think, to have this kind of stuff in a clinic when you're a potential candidate for a job, to see that you're going to be able to do your best work with your patients and really give them good outcomes.
Yeah.
What about the diabetes arena? Do you want to talk to me a little bit about that and how your equipment can be used in foot care for the diabetic population?
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly in predominantly the podiatry world, of course. Obviously, we've got orthotists in our network as well, but that main focus obviously sits within that arena. And our most popular tools in that world is our Phits plantar pressure measurement system. One of the main drivers of ulceration is a high impulse. Impulse is pressure over time that, goes through the plantar surface of your feet. And unfortunately, that's not something we can measure with our hands or our eyes. So there's a lot of assumptions and guesswork made without plantar measurement technology. So the ability to assess that from a preventative point of view is super useful. Obviously the NHS are pushing away a lot of the typical MSK these days and really focusing on the high risk patients or amputee prevention. But actually we've got hundreds of clinicians nationwide with the tools that collectively we can start to prevent that, and we can bring those numbers down, which ultimately will save lives as well. And that's sort of huge strain on the NHS. So the pressure measurement technology is our go-to in that world. And in recent years, we've really refined the integration of 3D scanning as well. So giving you the best of both worlds in terms of the static 3D geometric shape of the foot and literally overlaying it, merging it with the dynamic pressure data, which, is an unbelievable advancement from where we were 6 or 7 years ago. And obviously, from there, we can start to really optimize orthotic design as well. And we can bring all of that into one digital software. So that's come on a heck of a lot in the last couple of years. And that's been very much driven by podiatrists in our network. I know, Emma, you've had involvement in our clinical advisory panel as well, and given the first-hand experience on this would be useful, can we add this in? And yeah, that's all got fed into where we are today, really. So long may that continue, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, they're fantastic. So let's talk about the Phits insoles themselves. Let's say we've done an assessment in a musculoskeletal context and somebody needs some orthotics. Talk us through a little bit about how they're produced and why these are beneficial to clinics to be sort of upselling this particular product.
Particularly podiatrists on this call, I guess the vast majority do orthotics in some shape or form, whether that's off-the-shelf devices, semi-bespoke, or traditional bespoke. Now, just focusing on the bespoke side of things, obviously it's been around a long time, the ability to prescribe bespoke orthotics. And historically, it used to be a cast. So plaster of Paris, then it progressed to foam impression boxes. And in more recent years, we've progressed to the 3D scanning approach, capture that shape of the foot, which is of course super important, but doesn't necessarily take into consideration how the patient moves. And we wear orthotics to move. It's often those asymmetries or abnormalities in our motion that cause potential pain and problems, let's say. So we've always emphasized the importance for assessing a patient dynamically as well. Now, prior to us launching Phits, FootScan was a standalone assessment tool that you could use to assess someone's dynamic center of pressure. You could look at forces through the feet, but there was never a direct link with the data in terms of the orthotic. It was just a tool to help you. And you'd still have to sit there and write a paper prescription. When we launched Phits, it was a completely different way of prescribing. So there's various data-driven aspects utilizing the dynamic information. So we understand the force through 10 anatomical zones of the foot. We average multiple foot strikes, and based on that dynamic data, it will suggest areas of more rigid 3D print or more flexible 3D print. It will suggest other aspects as well, like top cover thickness and density, rear foot control, navicular support. So before the podiatrist actually starts a prescription, you've got a pretty solid foundation of a device there before you do anything. Now, that is 100% not to say you just walk someone across the system and click print, because I think people have a perception that that's what it is. It's not. It would be nice if AI did all of the jobs for us, but I think in this world, it's never really going to go all the way. You're always going to need clinical judgment, that face-to-face human conversations to actually understand pain. But yeah, I think the clinicians that welcome AI to complement them certainly will get a leg up versus those that just kind of push it to the side. So yeah, it gives you a data-driven foundation that you as a clinician can tweak. You can sit the 3D scan on top. You can, manipulate any aspect of that design as you wish. But rather than just filling in a paper prescription or ticking boxes in an app, you see it build in front of you. So I now say to people, just think of yourself as the architect of this pair of insoles. You're changing it, you're seeing it change live. So it's not a case of send it off to the lab and hope it comes back like you want. You're going to get exactly what you've designed to the nearest 0.1 of a millimeter. And I think that's been quite a refreshing change, because there's nothing worse than having to send things back and forth over time, especially overseas, like, some labs have difficulties with.
I particularly love that, that aspect where I can, on the TV screen, you can almost spin the orthotic that you've designed, and just be like, here you go, here's the top, here's the side, and you can sort of move it around the screen, and they can sort of see why you're doing what you're doing. I'm going to put this here for this and that there for that. And you sort of do it as part of the appointment. I think there's huge value in that, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, is that something that you did when you're in clinic, Emma? Do you show the patient the design and build it with them?
Yeah, I try and encourage my team to do that as much as possible. Obviously there isn't always time, but actually once you've gone through that assessment process and you've got the image of the orthotic up there, it doesn't take much to say, right, I'll have a little think about this, but this is what they're going to look like. And there's maybe a first cutout, and I'm just going to angle this way a little bit, because remember I said this, yeah. And they'll see it there and you'll be like, cool, I'll finish that later. You talk through which top cover they might want, or
I think that hugely assist with the patient buy-in, because you really strip orthotics back. We're trying to get the foot into a stable dynamic position, but also offset areas of high pressure or redistribute areas of high force. And if we're not actually measuring that, we're literally making an educated guess based on not seeing beneath the foot. So it's given the clinician the exact understanding of what is going on beneath that foot. So going back to the offloading areas of higher pressure, if you can literally bring that up on a big TV screen in front of them and say, here's where it is.
Yeah.
As basic as that sounds, you can put your offloading elements right on top of it. You can put in your extensions as you wish. And everyone's got a bit of asymmetry between left and right. No one's got the perfect feet. You might tell me otherwise, Emma. You might have the perfect feet.
Hardly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's giving the clinician the confidence to show these things. And then giving the patient that non-bias overview. Because without the proof, the patient's like, oh, I'm going to spend a lot of money here. Average £300 plus on a pair of orthotics in the UK.
Yeah.
The evidence is almost important to make someone go, yeah, I get that, and I'm happy to proceed.
That higher price tag would be nice if you were a patient, and what would you like? To say, right, I've got this corn or this fibroma or whatever it is, and I can see that this clinician is overlaying my 3D scan, and they are offloading that painful area. I can see them doing it. This is what I'm paying for. This awesome 3D printed technology, and it can do that right in front of them. And I think that's helpful in terms of their buy-in, but also outcomes. What do you think about that? Do you think they're more likely to have better outcomes if they're on board? Or
yeah, I think so. I think if people are reluctant or hesitant to go with it, they can often feel like, oh, it's not going to work. Yeah. They're just fobbing me off and getting money out of me. So, that's certainly something you want to avoid as a clinician. So I think it can certainly install that confidence, even just having like the risk analysis feature within the software.
Yeah.
I'd never jump straight to that if the patient's in pain, because, regardless of what that says, they're in pain and we need to deal with it. But, if that is flagging up elements of higher risk, it's not the clinician just winging it and saying that. It's a evidence-based approach. So I think that's really useful. And I think it goes beyond the actual sort of in-clinic part as well, because one of the things that we were asked to try and incorporate was the aftercare. So once someone receives a pair of orthotics, or when you process an order now for our Phits Plus devices, the patient gets a report instantly via email. So on that report, they'll get their average dynamic 2D pressure data. They'll get a 3D scan of their feet, showing them their arch length, width, height, etc. And then any modifications that the clinicians put in, for example, heel raise on one side or metatarsal dome, it will give them a visualization of that on an insole and tell them what it is in layman's terms and why that perhaps has been included. So again, it starts to then make a bit more sense for the patient of why I've been given this device, because it's not off the shelf that they've just gone home and been asked to buy for £4. It's specifically tailored to them. And yeah, they're not clinicians, so they're going to look at these things sometimes and be like, why have I got that on one side and not the other? So that's a really, really powerful part of it as well.
It's a beautiful PDF, and it is helpful. And I think it also adds value. So, from a business perspective, because obviously we're all about patient outcomes as healthcare professionals, and that really does need to be front and center. But also the Hive helps business owners build their businesses to a scalable and profitable business by adding value in these ways. Sending a report or showing them the 3D image of their orthotics, where you're adding value, and that, the upsell becomes easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we have found just from previous surveys is that clinicians that have introduced technology that were already doing orthotics are finding that they do more. And that's not necessarily because they're just forcing them on everyone. It's because they've got the show almost, they've got the proof, the evidence to back it up. And I think that just sways the patient's decision making to go, yeah, I understand that actually, and I'll go with that. I don't know about yourself, Emma, to be honest, because it's not something we've discussed, but I know several clinics as well have completely put off-the-shelf devices to the side altogether. So they might have a semi-bespoke option to try a certain prescription and then move to bespoke. I think there is a percentage of pods out there that are nervous to prescribe bespoke because they don't want to get it wrong. But that's a lack of confidence, a lack of selling and saying it costs this much.
Yeah.
They're happy to just churn out 10 pairs off the shelf a week. Reality is that the best solution for that patient who's come in with corns or asymmetrical movement? Yeah, it might do a job, but could it be better? Could it be more bespoke? Of course it could. So having it as an offering, it should naturally just increase revenue based on that higher sort of premium product, really.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think, there's always a place for chairside orthotics for sure. I'll still always give them, in the right circumstance. Somebody said to me once, when you're having this discussion with a patient and there's a semi-bespoke or off the shelf device here and there's a bespoke device here, they ask you the question, well, which one's better? And you say, right, well, let's take money off the table. Which one do you think would be better?
Sure.
And they go, well, the bespoke one. You're like, well, there you go.
Yeah.
There's always a budget, of course, but at the same time, it's not our job to tell them what they can and can't afford.
No, of course.
It's our job to give them the best possible treatment.
Completely appreciate the financials of sort of these higher level treatment. We're currently kind of working on an intermediate solution utilizing the same technology. So at that cheaper price point between your off the shelf and absolute premium bespoke. So yeah, that's something that hopefully by the end of the year we'll have a bit more information that I can share with you there.
Oh, I look forward to that one.
That should certainly open it up to those that maybe do want a bespoke, but are kind of sitting on the fence of, I don't want to quite spend that much money, but still given a premium solution. So I can't say too much more on that because I get told off.
Very exciting. Well, I'm sure we'll have to have you back on for another episode and we'll see what that's all about. It's news to me. I'm very excited. Fantastic. So September the 19th, what's going on? Tell us all.
Yes, we're hosting our second Gait and Motion Clinics National Conference. So with the network growing to quite a substantial size, I mean, we started actually doing our education online, and that started in COVID. And actually, Emma, I think you were one of the early webinarees, if that's even a word. Yeah. And we do those regularly every few months, and we get good numbers of people online, but we thought it's actually really nice to just see people face to face, bounce off each other and meet each other as well. Because, similar to Hive, we're building a network of like-minded clinicians that are all helping people, all treating patients and all using the exact same technology. So we did it last year. For the first time, we had 300 clinicians there for the day and a really nice speaker program. So yeah, we've gone for it again this year, back at the NEC in Birmingham, and it's meant to be for our clinical partners. So, clinicians that have FootScan and offer Phits as a service, but we have reserved a small number of tickets for people that aren't in the network, that are perhaps considering introducing technology, leveling up their biomechanics side of things. So if there's anyone watching this back that's kind of looked at us from afar and thought that looks interesting and perhaps sitting on the fence to going a bit further, then by all means get in touch and be more than happy to have you along on the 19th September.
And how do they get in touch with you if they are interested in your very kind offer?
Probably best to contact me directly. My email is george@gaitandmotion.co.uk, or however you wish. It's entirely up to you. You can send us a message on Instagram, on Facebook. Feel free to get in touch, and I can send a bit more information about how the day looks. We've got a really nice range of other trade partners there as well, from Shockwave to website design to diary management as well. So we're just trying to bring a bit of everything to try and help people optimize their practice for 2026 and beyond.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure it'll be amazing. I won't take any more of your time, but thank you very, very much. And if anyone is interested in introducing this sort of technology into their practice, you can always contact me because I'm a Gait and Motion Technology fan and I have it in my clinic. But of course, George is always available to talk things through. So that's all for this episode of the Optimised Practice Podcast. If you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe to our podcast on Spotify so you never miss another episode. Don't forget to follow us on social media platforms. And if you want help building your practice, please reach out to us at The Hive so we can show you how to build a profitable, stable, and highly respected practice that can ultimately work without your daily input. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next episode.